MPs of all parties are pushing the government to confirm now whether or not the new early warning plane contract has gone to Boeing of America. GEC Chairman James Pryor, who's leading the British Nimrod bid, says the Ministry of Defence has opted unfairly for the rival Boeing AWACS, and he wants an independent inquiry.
Mr. Pryor seems to have played a high-risk political hand which has gone wrong, for the result of his intervention is a counter-hand from sources at the Ministry of Defence claiming that Nimrod never really stood a chance. They and other sources at Westminster say that Defence Secretary George Younger has leant over backwards to give Nimrod a fair crack of the whip, even to the extent of some very public even-handedness in Brussels this month.
What I can say is that it's quite clear that both of them do work. It's a question of how they work in relation to the cost that each of them would be.
And that phrase, how they work, has proved absolutely crucial, because despite the fact that the Defence Secretary flew in both the rival aircraft, here the Nimrod in mid-November, the Ministry of Defence was already building up a serious case against Nimrod on the basis of other test flights. For this flight with Mr. Younger on board was one of the rare occasions when the radar system worked properly. ITN has learnt that of 15 test flights between August and October, only 5 produced proper sets of working data, and according to a Defence Ministry source, the data from them, quote, made our hair stand on end. Last Monday, we understand, Mr. Younger grilled his officials on their findings. The result was that he decided without reservation to go for the American AWACS system. But in an interview released tonight, Mr. Pryor is still insisting that Nimrod works.
What the Cabinet has to do, very simply, is to decide whether or not there's a system that works. If there's a system that works, and George Younger has said that both systems work, then under those circumstances you choose the British system. What I'm worried about is whether or not the assessment that has been made gives a fair chance to show whether the British system works or not.
Mr. Pryor's crying of foul over the choice of airborne radar for the RAF means the government is likely to have to reveal in some detail later this week just how damning its assessment of GEC's Nimrod system proved to be. Defence officials are letting it be known that choosing the American Boeing in preference to the British Nimrod was one of the easiest purchasing decisions they've ever had to take. The technical verdict in Boeing's favour was unanimous. All that Nimrod still had going for it was its lower cost and the fact that its technology was British, but such arguments would only matter if the technical results came close, and they didn't. A ground-based radar was used to track airliners and RAF fighters to set a standard against which to judge the two radar planes. The Nimrod revealed it could only track about half the targets the ground radar found, whereas the Boeing AWACS tracked them all and some others which the ground radar had missed. GEC insist their aircraft would meet the RAF specification by the time it entered service, but nearly £1,000 million has already been spent on Nimrod in the hope that its technical problems could be overcome. The Defence Ministry clearly now believes that they can't.
A Labour MP, Mr Dale Campbell-Savers, has called for a judicial inquiry into allegations that 2 Conservative MPs plotted with MI5 officers to destabilise the Wilson government in 1976. Today's Observer newspaper says it has corroborated the claims by former MI5 man Peter Wright, whose book the government is trying to ban.
And I can tell you that there are going to be calls in Parliament to identify the one who is today in Parliament, because that person, whoever he or she may be, has acted in a